Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Jack and Joe show. And we're here to discuss another Fulham win, even though it has been, as you just pointed out, Jack, a little while. But how are you doing?
Yeah, no, really good. Fulham are just continuing to just impress everyone, it seems, and impress ourselves, and we can't wait to talk about it today.
Yeah, so we beat Nottingham Forest 2-0. We're in 7th position, level on points with our next opposition, Brighton, behind on goal difference. And just ahead of Brentford, who had a great draw at the Emirates on Saturday as well. But it really does seem like right now there's a cluster of three of us who are all just pushing to try and get some sort of European football next season. And if we can maintain it, how fantastic would that be? But Jack, the win against Forest, I was just saying to you before we started, was to me a little bit like routine. And I've almost realised when saying that to you before we started how lucky I am to be saying that, and how lucky we are to have a pretty. I know there was a couple of tiny hairy moments in the second half before we made it 2-0. Pretty comfortable routine, and I would say that we didn't even need to be at our best. What were your main thoughts on the game? And most importantly, what did you make of, after digesting the result, how are you feeling about our season as a whole?
I mean, the season as a whole has been beyond anyone's expectations. In the summer we took a while to do our business. I was at the Villarreal game, which is a week before the season, and Marcos
Yeah.
Silva was less than pleased in his post-match, complaining about lack of signings. And then that very same afternoon, we were linked with 4 centre backs. So I didn't expect this, and what we've seen is players in their mid-30s like Willian and Ream just performing to the absolute maximum, and Marcus Silva getting the best out of his team. The goals have come from Mitrovic. They've also come from all around the pitch as well. But in terms of the Forest game, it was just another example of how good we can be on our day, how many chances we can create. And I said in the match reaction I did, the quick take I did, that I couldn't think of a spell between that first goal and half-time where we've been better. And upon reflection, maybe the Aston Villa first half as well at home. I thought we were really, really good then. But that was like on par with Saturday's performance. Joe, I've had basically, I spoke 15 minutes really about it on the quick take, so I really want to hear your thoughts. But overall, I thought it was really impressive, and actually defending really, really well to get the clincher with Solomon was very, very pleasing.
Yeah, I just feel very lucky to say that I don't think we really had to get out of first gear on Saturday. And yet in that first half, we could have easily been 3-0 up without really breaking sweat. Forest didn't cause us any problems. They looked quite fast on the break, but we were clearing everything up. Ream had an absolutely fantastic game, as did Diop next to him. I feel like Diop sometimes goes under the radar because we're all almost grovelling in our apologies to Tim Ream, me included, that we forget that Diop's come in and been fantastic. I think that in the second half, they had a 10-15 minute spell where they just had more of the ball. I wouldn't call it concerted pressure. They had one header, which was very well saved by Leno. But I don't know. It never felt like we were under the cosh, but it was a great release when Solomon scored. Not necessarily of relief, but just of joy for him, I would say, that he's finally got his first goal involvement in a Fulham shirt after such a difficult start to his career here and such a difficult time in his life in general, going even outside of football over the last year or two. I think that it's really positive that we made such light work of Forest when you think that they were unbeaten in a fair few games. I think that this was their first league loss this calendar year. They lost to United just before New Year's Day when I think they played Chelsea and drew. They've been tough to beat. They don't score many away, so I'm not going to start raving about the clean sheet. I wanted a clean sheet, and I'm really glad we got it. But I think the thing is, Jack, we've played 8 games since the World Cup break was over, and we've only let in 4 goals. And if you think about those 4 goals, we was a last-minute goal, Isaac, at Newcastle, which is obviously a bit gutting. Moment of brilliance from Harry Kane, moment of brilliance from Ward-Prowse, and to be honest, quite a lucky goal from Chelsea when it came back off the post. Yeah. I'm not saying that those goals don't count. Obviously, they do. I'm just saying I don't feel like our system is giving away anywhere near as many big chances as it used to, regardless of opposition. And it's great to see us so defensively solid at the time being. But we're really going to need to be that way on Saturday because we've got a really tough test against Brighton. who I know you've been a big fan of this season.
Oh, I mean, Brighton just they're a team we're now competing with for European football, which is something that we just didn't expect to say at the beginning of the season. But the way in which they're going about things at the moment is just insane. And actually, if you look at the run of fixtures we've got now, we've got Wolves next week. We've got Leeds at the end of the month in the Cup. And then we go to Brentford before we play Arsenal.
Arsenal,
yeah. So there is a chance for points here, and it's got to the point of the season where 35 points, we're sitting pretty comfortably going to survive, which is fantastic. I'm just taking a look at this Brighton team that they played at the weekend in the derby against Palace. Danny Welbeck didn't feature whatsoever.
Yeah.
But he wasn't put down as injured. The players who were put down as injured are Levi Colwill, Adam Lallana, and Moda. They played Undav up front and brought on Ferguson, the Irish youngster. But I mean, they have a riches of talents. Roberto De Zerbi's team, Mitoma has probably been one of the most impressive players in the Premier League this season. And he's gone completely under the radar, I think, as one of those players. He was brilliant at the World Cup, came back, scored some fantastic goals for Brighton away at Leicester, at home to Liverpool in the Cup. He's been unbelievable. McAllister's obviously been a star player for them as well, behind the striker. Again, World Cup winner, came back, he's done phenomenally. March has been a mainstay for Brighton even since we played them back in 14-15 when they beat us 2-0.
Yeah.
He scored the second goal in that game. Moise Caicedo, of course, we all know about him in the drama that came in January. Pascal Gross, Estupinian, Dunk Webster, Veltman. Like, they've got a very, very, very solid team with Sanchez in goal as well. And then on the bench, their options, the likes of Tariq Lamptey, Ferguson, as I said, Van Heck, who's obviously back in the fold after his spell at Blackburn last season, where he got.
I hope Harry Wilson doesn't come on and get kung fu kicked again.
Brilliant. So I mean, they're just a very well-oiled machine, and with it's very much similar to Fulham. The personnel of players, the personnel of players they've got in their team, they're getting the best out of them under Potter and under De Zerbi. We beat them at the Cottage, in pretty decent style, and obviously there's an own goal from Lewis Dunk in there as well. But we played really, really well in that game, and I think this is a game that I don't really know what to expect from it. Joe, what about you?
I'm exactly the same, because I know how good Fulham are, and I know how good Brighton can be, and I can't say I watch them every week. You'll look at the scoreline on paper against Palace, a 1-1 draw in that rivalry, and you think, oh, that's what can happen in these highly charged games. They sort of cancel each other out. If you look at the stats, you look at the highlights, Brighton absolutely battered them. And the only reason that Palace drew was a clanger from Sanchez, and also VAR drawing the offside lines on the wrong Palace defender, because Stupinan's goal was actually onside, which, if you're them, is just criminal. They create chances at will. At the moment, they seem to find a way. I know they didn't against Palace, but they did against Bournemouth the week before, where Bournemouth sort of sat back playing on the break, a few decent chances here and there, but the majority of the play coming through Brighton, and a last-minute header from Mitoma, who's probably not the first player you imagine popping up in the box. It's a game I do think we can get something from, and I do think De Zerbi, despite being relatively unknown to the Premier League, has taken them up a level since Potter. It looks like they are, Palace game aside, turning that dominance that they've always had under Potter into wins and into goals, which he always struggled to do. And they're, as you say, very well-oiled machine. There's loads of very, for those of you like me that look like the quite nerdy videos on their shape and stuff like that going around on Twitter, it's very satisfying. They almost progress in a box formation, 2 centre-backs, 2 midfielders, just knocking it about in a square, progressing up the pitch. It's really exciting to watch. That being said, you can 100% get at them. Leicester nearly beat them a couple of weeks ago when Ferguson scored last-minute equaliser. Palace managed to stay in the game against them, and we're better than both of those sides. Bournemouth as well took a last-minute goal to beat them. I see no reason why we can't go there and get something. That being said, would I probably take a point? Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the moment, it's all about staying in that pack, prioritising the home games, even though we are pretty decent away. The home games that we've got, Arsenal and City aside, not that I'm ruling them out of points, are all very, very winnable between now and the end of the season. we've played everyone else in the top 6 at home, plus Newcastle. So I think that's where we prioritise our points. And 4 points out of Brighton in both legs, if you will, would be a great return. And it would be the same against Brentford a few weeks, I can imagine. Although obviously I'd rather win that one.
6 points, yeah.
In terms of team news, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm thinking that we'll probably both say unchanged, depending on the Willian news. I feel like that's the only question mark, really.
Well, Willian went off with a slight issue. Not sure to the extent of it. I think I might head over to the press on Friday just to find out a little bit more what's going on. Mitrovic as well was playing with an injury.
True, yeah.
That's why I'm sort of like, I know on the podcast, Harry really did go in on Mitrovic, and I thought that was a little bit harsh, given the injury he's still playing with since like November. But anyway, back to team news. I'd like to see Solomon start.
Yeah. Would that be regardless of Willian? So, for example, if Willian is fit, would you start Solomon over Reed?
Yeah, but I don't want to drop Bobby Decord over Reed. I think he's been superb for us.
Yeah,
it's really hard. It's such an incredible position to be in.
And Wilson looked a bit brighter as well off the bench the other day, I thought.
Where he was wiped out in the lead up to our goal. I don't know how the yellow card didn't get brandished after that move, which was incredible. But yeah, I would like to see Solomon start purely based on the fact that he scored the other day, and when he has come on, I think maybe the Sunderland game he wasn't amazing in the replay, but I think like the wind and the blusteriness of the conditions up there was actually not very helpful towards him. But every other cameo he's played, like he's been really, really, really good. So maybe I would start him over Bobby Decord over Reed, which is harsh if Willian's fit. If not, we can maybe start him on... we could start Willian... Sorry, if Willian's not fit, we could start Solomon on the left and Bobby Decord over on the right, and then unchanged. What about Sasha Lukic, though? Do you want to see him play?
Came on, made his debut off the bench, as did Cedric. I don't think I would start Lukic in this one, but I'm definitely thinking that there will be rotation with probably Harrison Reed in particular over the next few weeks. I think that Reed, when he gets to like the 70th minute, he's dead on his feet because he puts in so much effort, and he's basically been playing 90 minutes every week, or twice a week, in fact, on some occasions for months. And I do think that Lukic will eventually rotate. Not I'm saying he will take his place, but I think they'll both chip in between now and the end of the season. I think I'd leave the midfield as it is for this one. I think that Reed had a good game on Saturday. Don't think it's worthy of dropping. And I also feel like for Lukic, I think it would just make sense for his first start to come in the cup. I don't know if that really makes too much sense considering we're progressing quite nicely in it. But in my head, that is a better place to make your debut than in a league game, even though the cup game arguably at this stage means more. So I feel a bit bizarre saying it there. But that's sort of my my mindset at the moment.
Score prediction?
Well, this is the thing. I was about to say, I'm thinking that we might cancel each other out. I think there's going to be a really tough game. And I think that Brighton will probably have the majority of the chances, almost similar to Newcastle away. It's just whether we can take ours on the break. I'm quite comfortable the way we set up away from home, where we almost sit back and absorb pressure at times, because we've got a lot better at that. I know it's ironic me mentioning Newcastle, where we eventually did succumb to it, but more often than not, Chelsea away, for example, at the end of the second half, when we decided to sit off a little bit, absolutely fine. I think that this one will be a 1-1 draw, and I think that we will take the lead, which will make it a little bit annoying, but I think that we'll take the lead. I think that this is one where Mitrovic finally, so it shows how the standards are that this is finally, but he gets back in the goals. And that's what I'm hoping for.
I'm also going for a draw. I'm also going for Brighton 0, Fulham 0. I think it will be a good game. But I think that there will be a lot of good defensive performances and a bit of weakness in front of goal from the likes of Undav, maybe Mitrovic. like, I'm not knocking Mitrovic at all. I just think that I think that he has the potential to have a good game. I just see it being 0-0.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
we've only let in 1 goal away from home since the World Cup, as we said earlier.
And that was Isaac.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were very close to not conceding any. And, those are some tough away games, Palace, Leicester, Newcastle and Chelsea.
And obviously the 2 at Sunderland, which was the FA Cup, but that
yeah.
was a different team. Joe, you're going to have to help me here because it seems as though you're already there in terms of your switch of mentality. I think you've been there for a few weeks and I'm just struggling to get there. Because, ultimately I've said it all season. We've all said it all season. We want to survive in the Premier League. It looks that way now. But now I'm struggling to be like, can I start getting annoyed if we're not in a European race? I feel like I'm just still happy to be here.
Yeah, I completely know what you mean. And I feel it's
strange.
I only switched in mentality completely around the time of that Chelsea win or the Leicester win just before it, where I was thinking, oh my goodness, we are really picking up points here. I think we've got enough to not go down. I definitely haven't switched to a mentality where I'd be annoyed if we drop points due to European reasons. I'm always a bit annoyed if we drop points, but obviously in the Premier League, you're slightly more lenient. Drawing away to Brighton, for example, is very different to drawing away to Barnsley in our position last year when we were going for the title and they were trying to stay up. But it's a weird place to be in because, if we'd have drawn on Saturday against Forest and we'd have been sat here right now on 33 points, miles clear, and we'd be a bit thinking, we dropped a couple of points there, but it's not the end of the world. I imagine there would have been some people that would have been really annoyed because we'd have lost ground on Brighton for 7th. And the reality is that is where we currently are. And we are in a mini league below the top 4-5 with Brighton and Brentford, a couple below us that can catch up. Still got Liverpool and Chelsea that might pick up more points. It's a bizarre position to be in. I completely know what you mean, where I don't know how to feel. And we're going into this Brighton game and I'm feeling quite nervous because Brighton are doing so well. And I'm looking at the table. Yes, they played a couple more. We're on the same points as them and we beat them at home earlier in the season. There's no reason to fear them, even though it'll be a really tough game. As much as the praise they get, we've done the exact same thing. And with a newly promoted side, we've had less time to build. So, this next few games, would I take 5 points from the next 3 where we've got away games at Brighton and Brentford and a home game against Wolves? Yes, that would be...
That gets us to 40.
That would be winning the home game and drawing the 2 aways
and
getting to 40, as you say, which is just a fantastic milestone. I'm now thinking, in my head, I'm thinking I want to beat 54 points, which is the most we've ever got in the Premier League season. Regardless of league position, it would be amazing to beat that because why not? We can.
Saturday was a good indication because it was like, we've actually gained 3 points on Spurs. Would you believe it? Given they lost to Leicester, we gained 2 points on Brentford and 2 on Brighton because they both drew. It's so mad because now we're in a situation where everyone basically knows we're going to be Premier League next season, and I don't know how this is going to come across, but I feel like some of the fan base on Twitter are nitpicking at issues. They'll find an issue. So right now the issue is Mitrovic's performances.
Yeah. Look, we've spoken for ages though, Jack, about, and you're probably about to say the same thing, about Mitrovic is the source of all our goals. We've won 2-0 without him being involved, and he still had a decent, his game was fine. He could have got a goal on another day. His hold-up play in the first half was good. We've got the most different scorers in the Premier League, as Fulham tweeted yesterday, with 12. 13 if you count own goals. Thanks, Dunk. But it's one of those things where, why are you complaining? We've won 2-0.
I know. And that's my mentality. I have nothing to complain about at the moment. There was an issue about, we haven't scored many goals recently. And then suddenly flew out the blocks against Forest, 1-2-0, and should have probably scored 3, 4, maybe even 5. So there's no issues there. It does get to a point, I don't want to get completely ahead of myself, where you do see situations like this where things just start to get a little bit, and I'm not talking this season, let's say next season, things start to get a little bit stale. And if you go 5 or 6 games without a win, I don't want it to be a case of, oh, do we need to switch things up managerial wise, because I think Marco Silva, let's say we finish like 10th this season, we go into next season, we start well, and then maybe in like October we go 5 without a win and we're sitting in 14th and fans are getting nervous. It's obviously very circumstantial because individual performances and progression is important as variables in this. But in terms of finding things to get annoyed about and trying to make change for change's sake, that's quite dangerous because it's a case of grass ain't greener on the other side. And I think there's been a lot of cases of that this season in the Premier League where clubs have made decisions and ended up regretting them. We're seeing a lot of change. You know, Jesse Marsch going to Southampton is insane, I think. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just erring myself on the side of caution not to switch my mentality too much where I'm too far gone in terms of I start falling out of love with the system or something, because that could happen with football fans. Football fans are very fickle. Opinions change very, very quickly. And I just don't want to fall into that trap because we haven't been in this situation in so many years where we've been so comfortable in a Premier League season.
You've made a great point, Jack, because look, let's face it, the likelihood is we will drop off from where we are currently. I'm not saying that we'll drop off a cliff, but we might drop off a little bit.
Natural.
And it's important to recognise that the levels we're playing at right now are above, by far, what was expected of us. And you're completely right in saying the grass isn't always green on the other side. Is it, Fabio? You know, it's just not. One point before we go, I think we should say, Jack, and I almost leave this without saying a single other thing. I don't think this is going to happen. It's a question to you, yes or no. If right now we were 6 points off 18th, would you still be thinking that relegation is a possibility? We're 6 points above 18th.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because Forest are. I don't think Forest are gone. I don't think Forest are clear.
I'm glad you said that, because all I'm going to leave this with is we've got the same amount of time left. We're 6 points off top 4. So just putting that out there.
The Champions League is back tonight as well.
Can't wait to hear that music.
Some Valentine's gift that is for tonight. We must actually, it would be remiss. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. The news came through almost less than an hour ago. Former Fulham player Alfie Mawson had to retire. It was due to injury. He's been at Wickham all season, I think, and played a big part in their season. They beat Derby at the weekend. But he hasn't played for a while, I don't think. I think his last game was a clean sheet and a win. I think it might have been against Port Vale, but I'm not sure because that was last week. I'm not sure how long he's been injured for. I need to read into it. It's incredibly sad. You know, we bought this guy for, was it £25 million or £20
Something
million?
Like that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
In that crazy summer.
Yeah. Jack, I remember speaking to you about it at the time it was rumoured, and I was so excited.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were right to be excited. At the time, he was such a hot prospect, and it's really sad that this is how his career's had to end at 29. One thing that is good, if you read the Wickham sort of press release on it, it's an interview with Mawson. He says that if he'd have retired in the summer, which he said was a possibility, summer just gone, then, you know, he probably wouldn't have even been interested in watching football again. He'd completely fallen out of love with it. He said that moving back to Wickham has reignited his love for football, and fingers crossed he can stay in it in some capacity, or at the very least enjoy watching it like the rest of us. But it's so sad that he was, you know, on the verge of the England squad, wanted by some huge clubs, including us, obviously, and we got him. But he was, you know, he was at one point one of the next big thing at centre-back for England.
It's tough because obviously, you know, he played a part in that promotion season under Parker, and then when Michael Hector came in, and throughout his time at Fulham, he's had injury issues as well. Let's not forget that. And it's tough. It's tough because obviously, you know, even last season he played a little bit of football, not loads. But it just, you know, Ream and Tosin. Ream is just surpassing all his expectations last season and this season. And these things happen in football. You can't play 20 players at once on the pitch at one time for one team. It's impossible. And these things do happen. it's just one of those things. And hopefully he can do his coaching badges or something and still be involved in the game, because I think he's got a lot to give. So we wish him the best from all us here. And that's it for today. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. And it's just nice just to have a relaxing video. Do you know what I mean?
I know it is. I hope that there's not chaos at the Amex to cause me to lose my head next week. Probably not. But yeah, Jack, pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching. And if you are making the trip down to the seaside, then have a great day.
Yeah, fish and chips in the morning and then off to the stadium, I'm sure. I think I might be working this one, so I'm looking forward to doing that new ground in terms of the press area. So we'll see what happens there. Thanks very much for all the support on the new quick take. That was really fun to do. Hopefully we can do that more going forward. And Joe, I suppose we'll be back next week to preview Wolves, which is the Friday night game.
Yes, we will preview Wolves and probably Leeds as well, I'm guessing, because that's on the Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
Football crazy, right? Let's go.
Football crazy, football mad. And obviously, like, right now we're in that really nice period where there's a full bill of Football League tonight. There's Champions League, like 2 a night for the next few weeks, because it's the round of 16, Europa League, United versus Barcelona, and Conference League as well. So there's a lot of football to look forward to. And Fulham are in the thick of it, being in a FA Cup 5th round as well against Leeds. Which, by the way, I mean, we haven't talked about the ticket pricing on that. We can maybe get into it next week, but we'll see how the sales do for the next week. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Thanks everyone for watching.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week, and come on, Fulham.